And welcome to another edition of South Texas Now. We are proud to be here on television, but not only on television with all our great friends, including Lopez Broadcasting and also KRS, but also on more than 3 platforms on the internet, including Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. With me, I have Judge Joe Benavides. How are you, Judge?
Great, Counsel.
And once again, my dear friend, Carlos Lopez.
Nice to be here, Joe.
Broadcaster and owner and pioneer of broadcasting here in South Texas and a leader of Latinos, both of you all. So thank you for being here. I know you guys see things colorblind, of course, because even though we come from a common background, we treat everybody the same. And I wanted to start with you, Judge. When somebody is in your court, who are you dealing with?
Well, mainly a large majority is your juveniles, your juveniles that are charged with some type of Class C misdemeanor.
Now, these Class C misdemeanors can range from what to what?
From $1 to $500 of community service and programs.
What are we seeing? Are we seeing drugs, vaping, not going to school? What are the offenses?
Okay, now the offenses that we have now are vaping. It's pretty much getting out of control. It's throughout, Nueces County. It's not only one school in particular, one ISD. It's all over the place. And I'm trying to educate parents and educate the students that are being brought in that vaping is harmful. And it's a continuous thing. And every week we bring in from 40 to 50 cases and from all the ISDs on vaping.
Now, a lot of parents and grandparents especially, we've seen cigarettes in our generation. We've seen marijuana. Now we can't tell one from the other, and they shouldn't be doing either. But are there any telltale signs that parents bring to you and say, I know they're using, or the paraphernalia that they have, and the educators catch them with it?
I think you got a point here, Joe. Back in the 70s, 80s, it was huffing, spray paint. And then after that, it was synthetic marijuana. And now we have the vaping. And vaping is the kids that are caught are pretty much street smart because now they're starting to learn how to go into those cartridges and put drugs in it, THC, whatever it is. They have mechanisms that will detect if there's any type of drugs in it. So it's, of course, a higher level of a charge. But if it's tobacco, then it's a Class C misdemeanor. And but electronic cigarettes, they're what they do is they create chemicals within that electronic cigarette, and so they're putting in about 130 different types of chemicals in their system while vaping.
Good Lord. And we haven't even seen the effects after 20 years. Carlos, as a broadcaster and always bringing on public messages, what are you seeing as the health risk and the impact on not just the Latin community, but everybody here in South Texas and nationwide?
Bringing a lot of community awareness, how dangerous this is in our community. We have a variety of different radio shows that talk about the danger of these addictions and the fall of these children if we don't take action. And it's leaders like the judge here that is taking every step possible within the law to try to prevent this from happening, Joe, because it can be a destruction for a new generation, and we don't want to be that.
Well, our society is graying, right? We have more seniors coming. There's going to be a tsunami of seniors, including us in 20 years. And the thing is that these people are going to be taking care of us, these young people. So what are the interventions, Judge, that you are doing in order to... I know the parents sometimes say, why am I being punished? Why am I being fined? When I didn't even introduce it to them. I've never smoked a cigarette in my house. I've never smoked marijuana in my home.
Well, my first one is intervention is I look at siblings within the household, and the younger siblings look up to their older siblings. But no longer can you do that because the older siblings, the teenagers, start vaping. So I started a contest throughout the school system, a poster essay contest on the harmful effects of vaping. And it's only from the 1st grade to 5th grade. And it's throughout the school system here in Nueces County. So any child and parent that wants to submit a poster of the harmful effects of vaping and a one-page essay. They submit it to my courtroom. And, of course, we have the first, second, third place. The awards go to the student that has created the poster and the essay. So I look at it in a reverse way. Now we're seeing older siblings looking down at their younger siblings and seeing what they're doing with the poster and the essay, and hopefully, they snap, in a right way and say, you know what, look, my younger sibling is doing something to keep me off vaping. So that's just a reverse thing. On May 10th, we have a program out at the Century Jury Room, the Claygard Century Jury Room on May 10th from 6 to 8:30, and we'll have roughly about 300 kids, and it's going to be doctors from all over just going to speak about the harmful effects of vaping.
Carlos, when you do public service messages, isn't it true that the FCC supports that kind of thing?
Absolutely, Joe. They provide us as a public trust as part of being a licensee. And it's a public trust to bring awareness to the community for things that are happening. When I was growing up, Joe, one of the things that impacted me the most when I was a young person was watching a video that they showed us called Scare Straight. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that was very powerful, Joe.
It was.
As, it showed us the danger of not going that direction, but going this direction in life. And I think that's what the judge does here with his programs that he has. They have impacts, and they're set up in ladders, in little steps that he's, planting his seed to help this community. Because if he doesn't intervene and try to help either through the parents or even though it may be something that they're not very happy with, something has to give. Because otherwise, it's going to be a very destructive situation in our community.
Your Honor, do you think that vaping is a gateway to other heavy drugs, methamphetamine, or subject them later on to bad choices, prostitution, dropping out? This is pandemic. The dropping out of people, particularly in the Latino culture, we need to push people for education. Is this causing, or does it go hand in hand with absenteeism and rebellion?
Joe, you're absolutely on point. The gate's already been opened. So now you have truancy, you have bullying, peer pressure, all at the not only at the middle school level. Now you have the fifth graders at the elementary level vaping, and from there it creates all sorts of other activities, as in drugs, peer pressure, truancy, not going to school, fighting in school, all sorts of stuff that's occurring with this vaping issue we have here in our community. And I just think the most important thing that we must do is educate our parents. We have to partner up with our parents. The parents have to partner up with the schools to try to combat the vaping issue we have. And I think you're on point. Yeah, it is a gate. The gate has been opened already. And now what we got to do is try to close that gate.
And a question to both of you all on is it more difficult growing up now? I mean, on the one hand, when you got bullied in school, I mean, there were a lot of fights, right? And there was a lot more violence. Now it's kind of transformed into the social media bullying, the shaming, and we see kids being cyberbullied and committing suicide. How can we, and then they say no one understands. Certainly you and mom don't understand, for instance, a child says that. What do you tell that child?
I believe like the danger is a whole lot more, Joe, than when we were growing up, because the judge, myself, and were not introduced back in the day where somebody would give you like a gummy bear that looks completely innocent, Joe, and you would put it in your mouth not knowing that it's a very dangerous drug. I mean, these drugs are being offered to people that are very enticing, and vaping is a very dangerous way to introduce drugs to people as well. These students, it's very dangerous, Joe.
I think you're on point also, Carlos, and I think what's most important in our generation, we got bullied, but we were street smart to look for some other avenue to walk home, another avenue to go to school, to stay away from these groups. Nowadays, the most important thing that's harming our kids is social media. Social media is a problem all over, and that's where you get the bullying. Not only in school, not in person, but social media.
So what measures do you have in place in the court when there is, say, a social media bully that caused somebody to attempt to commit suicide or has been using, in the past, I've seen racial epithets, I've seen body shaming, all this. Is there a punishment? How can you enforce it?
Very hard to enforce. It's just, providing a court order. They have to follow it. It's very hard. Our hands are tied. But most important is, I believe, is to direct the parents to send a kid to a counseling.
And sometimes parents do have to get fined, say if they don't take their child to school. So what sort of measures do you have in place to make the child go to school? I hear a lot of parents going, they're 13, 14, they say, I don't want to go to school anymore. And you can't make me.
It's tough. It's a tough scenario because a lot of teenagers aren't like teenagers in the past. And I know for a fact that I try to work with the parents and try to do the best that I can to guide them and or try to guide the child to let them know that how important school is. And without an education, they're going to have a rough life.
And Carlos knows about this, how tough your job is. Carlos, we just did an interview. You have a different set of a situation where you have children with special needs.
Sure.
But one of your children, I remember, I was furious when they didn't have the support. And he was assaulted when he was very young, half his age now. And how did that make you feel?
Well, it's bringing awareness, Joe, as much as possible to people that just because you look like you or me, and all of us very typical, that they may have other disabilities that you cannot see. Teaching children that there's others and have a little bit more compassion, and there's people that are just very mean. And it starts at home. It starts with the family. It starts with mom and dad. Or the grandparents, or whoever's the caretaker for this individual, and teach them, hey, don't bully this child because he has a disability. It's not funny. It's not fun. And it starts with that type of education, Joe, because if you don't cut that cancer there, then it's going to continue. It's going to spread, Joe, and it's going to destroy how we treat each other.
Y'all are watching Carlos Lopez, a broadcaster, a parent with a large family, but he also has children with special needs, and creating awareness about that. You're watching Judge Joe Benavides trying to stop vaping and the drug use that's coming in. Any last words, gentlemen, before we take a break? Judge?
I think it's
Carlos?
changing, Joe. I think when Judge took his first oath, when he went into the office, the problems that are plaguing our community are always changing, and he's always pivoting and making sure that he's up to speed with what's happening in the community. As he's a former Marine, he is a judge that has boots on the ground, and he knows what's happening in the community. So when you come to his courtroom, you can't tell him something that he doesn't know, because he comes from the streets as well. He understands the law.
We're going to take a brief break. When we come back, we're going to start off with Judge Joe Benavides and talk about how we can prevent problems like vaping and other problems that lead to really dangerous situations when we come back.